Let's just break down XP3 system.
We taught the whole concept of hire, train, retain. We broke 100 million that year.
What does culture play in terms of getting that good talent?
Culture is everything. Without it, you don't have a chance in hell at being able to build a team.
Employee engagement. How important is it to create that?
Build relationships with as many other employees as possible for two reasons. Number one,
you must have seen contractors struggle to hire field staff. What are some of the biggest issues that you see them making?
First one is probably
Like, what's the top 3 pieces of advice that you give to folks?
the biggest mistake I would say that I see is that
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
All right, tradies, another episode of Beers with Contractors. Terry, sir.
Cheers to you, Will.
Cheers to you, buddy. Hey, listen, today marks a very, very, very important day for you and I, Terry.
What anniversary did I forget?
Nope, not an anniversary, a new record. And our wives will be very happy to hear that we have now made it a month and 6 days, and the keg is still got beer in it.
Yes.
Like, remember the first month we cleared through it? We were like,
Under
wait a
28
minute.
days.
I thought these things were supposed. You brought us a defective keg. I knew that thing was way too light.
No, it's just like right after Christmas, you get a new toy. What do you want to do? You want to play with it, right? And then as it kind of wears off, you don't play with it as much. So,
yeah, that's right. Well, listen, man, I think we're good. I kind of like jiggled the kegerator around. I was like, all right, we still got some weight in here. So in this economy, man, we gotta watch it, you know? So Terry, Sydney and I, like, we are, a little left of center about like how we hire, recruit, train, all of that. And I mean, we've talked about it on our show. They're in our Q&A episodes.
Mhm.
And sometimes I speak to other contractors about this stuff, and they are just like, you do what? And it's like, yeah, man, like, we work. Like, if we need people, like, we do not take it lightly.
Mm-mm.
And that's just from my personal experience, of course. And, there's a few folks around this world that have helped me understand a lot about like recruiting, retention, and things, especially for trades, which you supply contractors with awesome students every year through your construction science programs. But like, there's a few people that have made a major difference in our internal systems and processes. One, I would say like Jason Dorsey, his research development firm, man, they've got just an awesome outfit, and they made us change our view on Gen Z and stuff. It is awesome. But I'm pumped because our guest today is the other one.
Okay.
And I think you're going to take some tidbits even away for your academia position you have, Terry. So are you ready to dive into the cool side of HR?
Let's learn.
Yeah, I know you're always on the bad side of HR. But yeah, our guest today is the author of Hire, Train, Retain. I got his book right here. Love it. And is the creator of the XP3 Talent System with more than 25 years of experience in leadership and team development. He helps business owners like you, contractors out there, and you know who you are, all 5 of you that listen to us, build stronger teams, cut turnover, create systems. And that's what we need so much in hiring and training is people lack the systems. And Michael's mission is pretty simple: to give contractors practical tools, hire the right people, train them effectively, and keep them for the long haul. So I love it because we can pronounce his name 2 different ways. The author of Hire, Train, Retain, Michael Matalone, or Matalone, as we were teasing him before. So, Michael, welcome to Beers with Contractors, sir.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you, Terry. Glad to be
Cheers.
here.
Yeah, so, just in general here, like, I'm sure you came out of the womb, said, you know what, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
But you didn't, right? So
Right.
take us through the abbreviated journey of what landed you creating XP3 and all that stuff.
All right. So abbreviated version, I spent 5 years in the early 2000s as an executive coach for Vistage International. If you're familiar with them, if you're not, it's the world's oldest, largest coaching organization for CEOs. So I ran 3 executive groups, 2 CEO groups, 1 second in command group. And I learned some significant lessons throughout that 5 years. 2 of them that stood out that led to me creating the XP3 Talent System and then eventually writing the book. One, and you already kind of touched on it, Will, you have to have a system and a process for everything you do if you want to scale consistently and effectively, right? Just makes it so much easier to bring on new clients, bring on employees, right? And do everything more effectively. And the second thing I learned is that most business problems are really people problems in disguise.
No, people are like so binary and they follow instructions and they're not emotional, right?
Right. Not at all. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, part of that process that, the members would bring a challenge and like, I'm having cash flow problems or I'm having sales challenges or whatever. And then we'd ask clarifying questions through the process to understand it more. My job was to reframe it and say, okay, based on what you just heard this person tell you, do you still believe cash flow is the problem or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Or did you guys hear another issue? And, and most time would come back, yeah, you got a cash flow problem because you don't have the right person handling your cash, right? Who knows how to do that. So then the problem we usually ended up solving was, okay, can we train this person up or do we got to replace them? Right. So those two things started me thinking about it. All right, well, you need a system and a process. I said, well, what systems are out there for the people? And as you guys know, there's a lot of hiring systems out there and some are good, some are not, but they're out there. There's a lot of training systems that are out there. But what I didn't find that I was looking for was an end-to-end system throughout the employee life cycle, so hence the hire, train, retain, because it does no good to hire unless you're thinking about the training component. It does no good to hire and train if you're not thinking about retention from the get-go, because otherwise you're just wasting your money. So that was what sparked me and gave me the motivation to say, all right, I'm going to go out and create a system. So that was probably in 2007, 8 when I first thought about it, probably about 2010 when I started to actually build it and do the research around it. And we've been delivering it now for probably about 8 or 9 years. And then around that same time, we took a big focus in construction. I come from a contractor family, but that's not why we got into it. I actually went to work for one of the largest window contractors in the country on a contract basis for a year to help them turn over a little problem they had, which was 80% turnover, like literally in 6 months.
Wow.
They hired 230 people and lost about 170 of them.
Wow.
So think about what that was costing. So they said, can you fix it? And I said, sure, we're going to implement the XP3 Talent System, train all your managers. And then I found out that when I said that, and keep in mind too, that at the time, this company had been in business 9 years and was doing 63 million in 4 locations. Wow. They had no managers. It was 2 brothers that owned the company and they were it. I joked about the cash flow thing, right? They were still doing their books on QuickBooks, and the guy who was doing it was probably a glorified bookkeeper at best.
That's crazy.
Anyway, that's how my first step into the contracting world with this. And then from there, so shorter version, 6 months later, we got that 80% turnover down to 23%. More importantly, we taught them the whole concept of hire, train, retain. So everything improved. We broke 100 million that year, opened up our 5th office in February the following year. We set a goal to do 5 million for the year in the new office. And we opened it at the end of February and did 5 million by July 1.
No,
that's nuts.
So that's when we kind of knew we had something powerful. And then I also do a lot of speaking and stuff. So they introduced me to a guy that runs a contractor association who then invited me to come speak. And then that kind of catapulted stuff. And then the book idea, right? So people kept saying, you got to put all these ideas in a book, put it down. There's so much to it. So I came out with the first book, which you kind of see behind me here. That came out in 2019, and it was okay, I guess, for a first stab at writing, but it, in my opinion, was a little disjointed. A couple of years back, I said, okay, I got to do a second version and condense it. I also found out that people are really good at buying books, but most people aren't as good about actually reading.
No.
So you got to kind of keep things short, and that's why, the page count is only 200 pages. Because I took out all the fluff, just kept the meat in there, what people need to know to be able to implement the lessons learned. So that was the motivation for the book.
By the way, what a good salesperson, Terry. He's like, my first book, it was okay,
But the second book.
Way better.
And I got the second edition, which I saw was a 2025
Yes, you did.
copyright date. So that's awesome.
No, Mike, what's going to be interesting is before I leave here, I'm going to sneak that book off Will's desk and he's still not going to get to read it.
I'll read it. Hey, listen, as long as it's got big words, size 18 font, I am good, Terry. You know me.
Yeah, Will's looking for that
We are
pop-up
working on
book.
the audio version, but it's going to be another couple months before that's out. So, but it's in the works.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you've been out there for so many years, and you must have seen contractors struggle to hire field staff. What are some of the biggest issues that you see them making, or biggest mistakes that you see them making when trying to put good people in the field?
Yeah. So, first one is probably the mindset that they bring to it, right?
Mhm.
This is just, some hourly rate person that, I need a laborer, I need an installer, I need a carpenter, electrician, whatever. And they kind of don't put the credence and level of attention on them as they would say if they're hiring, a general manager or marketing manager or finance person for the company. And you have to recognize even the laborer is just as important to your success as everyone else. So treat everybody, similarly. But the biggest mistake I would say that I see is that, again, they're just hiring people for the job. And that's at any level, right? I need you to do this. I need somebody to do this, and they hire for that. But you got to go to the end game, right? What I mentioned earlier, the retention piece. So if you're not thinking about retention up front, that's probably the biggest mistake you're making. Because otherwise you're just going to have a revolving door, right? And you're going to constantly be flipping people. And everyone always believes it's so hard to hire good people, right? Which means your mindset on what you believe people are worth needs to change. And then when they go to hire, what they're hoping to do is hire those elusive A players, right? The best of the best. And then even if you get lucky enough to hire one of them, which, by the way, there's only about 20% of the world's population, working population, that are natural A players. And probably half of them are running their own companies or will be soon. So they're going to come work for you to learn your stuff and then go, I can do this myself, right? So they're not going to be with you probably very long. Or, they're very high paid executives working for huge corporations, right? So with lots of perks. But that mindset has got to change. And you got to recognize that over 60% of the working population are B players, or what we like to call high potential candidates. That's the reality of what you're going to be dealing with mostly. So the mindset is the career path. I have to transform those new hires into passionate, collaborative, productive company advocates. And that starts in the hiring process, but it really happens in the first week in the training onboarding, and then it continues throughout the life cycle. So I know I kind of touched on a bunch of stuff, so I'll kind of pause it.
No, and that's good because I want to transition from the recruiting, and then we'll go into training and then retention here in a second, Mike. And thank you for saying mindset, because even in our software company where we help institute performance and incentive plans, it's like, tell me what problem you're trying to fix. And the owner's like, well, I got all these idiots working for me, and they're milking the clock, and they're fucking lazy. And I'm like, hold on. Like, no software is going to fix your good bedside manner, sir.
Exactly.
And that's a polite way of saying you're an asshole, right? And so I got to poke at this a little bit, Mike, because you get to work with contractors all over the country. Like, how do you break through that hard exterior crust with some of these Neanderthal contractors that just think everybody's like horrible?
Yep. So I usually do it with questions, right, rather than telling. So the first question I would ask,
I got to take notes, Terry. Hold on.
Yeah. Get your knuckles off the ground, Will, and take some nuts.
I'm sorry. Drake's recording it. We're good. We're good.
Anyway, so the first question I come back with is, how's that working for you? Right? Well, maybe not so well, right? I got a lot of turnover. I'm constantly replacing people, or I'm having to do all the work, right? And so what I've learned is to get through to them is you got to help them realize the reality of the situation they're in, and that, what they're doing obviously is not working, because if they're talking to me, they're usually seeking a solution, something to change. And you got to be willing to change and think out of the box in order to do it. And the other thing too is, most managers with that mindset too, Will, right? they have that attitude, like, if it wasn't for all these damn people knocking on my door, bothering me all day, being a manager would be great, right?
Yeah.
But you got to realize that is the job.
Yeah.
If you're a manager, you're dealing with people. That is the bulk of the job, not a byproduct of the job. And with that, the other thing I tell them is, look, if you're going to be an effective manager in today's world, you have to become a coach, not a manager. So think about it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be managed, right? It's like,
No.
I want someone to manage me. But almost everybody is open to being coached. So if you develop that performance coach mindset, then that right there is the beginning of the transition that you need to have. The other one I deal with a lot, particularly in smaller contracting firms, they wear it as a badge of honor that we are a family business, right? Well, I don't know about you, but my family and most everyone I know's other families are full of dysfunction, right? So I don't want to bring that dysfunction to my company. But if you look at high-performing teams, right, there's rarely ever dysfunction on high-performing teams. So I would say get away from that. Yeah, there's value to the family thing and that kind of closeness, but really start positioning yourself as a team. And then that mindset will transform how you actually treat and deal with people.
Well, Mike, you're talking about mindset and what that company or that owner is producing, right? What does culture play into recruiting for companies that are dealing with foundation or window or the trades in terms of getting that good talent in those demanding jobs?
All right. So Terry, this couldn't have been a better setup for everything that I do.
Perfect.
Culture is everything. Without it, you don't have a chance in hell at being able to build a team, right?
Yep.
So, but most people don't understand what culture really is, right? So first thing is to break it down. Your culture is grounded in your mission, your vision, and your core values, right? So let's assume that they actually have those. But then the second step is are they constructed properly? And are they utilized effectively? Having a bunch of words on a wall doesn't do anything to your culture, right? You have to live it, breathe it. And in today's world, more than ever, ever since COVID, the employees learn that they have options, they have choices. And if they ain't going to get what they want from you, they're going to go down the street where there's multiple other opportunities. So therefore, what they are looking for is to become part of something meaningful, which is your mission, right? So I don't care if you're a roofer, a landscaper, a painter, come up with a good mission statement of why you're in business and do what you do. And then rally around that when you're hiring, when you're training, and constantly all the time, make sure people are living that mission. So where this is going to, Terry, is it's actually about tapping into what's known as discretionary effort. So you're familiar with discretionary effort?
No, I have discretionary spending, but that's about it.
Yeah. Similar, but different.
Yeah, I think Terry's used to minimal effort, actually.
If any at all.
So there, guys, there's been like tons of studies around this by Gallup, McKinsey, other big consulting firms. We've done our own over the years. And what we've learned is that the average employee only puts in about 40 to 60% of what they're capable of putting in. The other 40 to 60% is discretionary. They choose whether or not they're going to put that in. And the key, the secret sauce to get them to do that is to create a psychological connection between that employee and the organization. And that starts with the mission, vision, and values, right? So take the entrepreneur, the owners that are out there listening, and we're going to assume that you have a mission, vision, and value statements, right? So they're yours. It's your mission. So obviously you believe in it. You have a vision for what you're trying to accomplish in the future, right? So you're passionate and willing to do whatever it takes to accomplish that vision. And hopefully you have some good core values that you operate by, which really guides your day-to-day behavior, like integrity, trust, honesty, stuff like that, and that you operate by those. So therefore, you are psychologically connected to your mission, vision, and values and will do whatever it takes to help that company succeed. Well, you can get your employees to have that same connection that you have, and that's the beginning step of tapping into that discretionary effort. The second part of it is a psychological connection to the actual work that they do. And this is where this use of personality assessments comes into play, which unfortunately, in my experience, most people don't understand how to utilize them properly. Like they might have a target profile. Oh, you don't match, so I'm not hiring you, right? So the first thing people need to learn about personality assessments is they do not predict if you can do the job. That's your knowledge and skill. Knowledge and skill tells me if you can do it. What personality tells me is if I can figure out what are the target behaviors for this job, and then find somebody who naturally has those traits. And by the way, personality traits are defined as how you're wired to think, which follows by how you feel about what you're thinking about. That combination will predict how you will behave in most situations. So example, let's take a project manager, right? One of the core competencies of a project manager is attention to detail. Probably 60, 70, 80% of the things they do throughout a day is dotting the I's and crossing the T's on everything, right? Well, you can learn how to do those details, right? But if you're like me, right, I know how to do them. I don't like doing detail work, right? I'm good for an hour or so. But if you said, hey, no, half your day or more is going to be doing detail work, well, then what's going to happen is whether I do them well or not depends on the mindset, how I'm feeling at the time. Am I looking forward to coming to work and doing details all day? And the answer is usually hell no, right?
No.
So therefore, you don't get that consistency you're looking for. But when you can align the personality traits and have that psychological connection to the actual behaviors of the job, which what you're doing, by the way, is tapping into what's known as intrinsic motivation. And they're psychologically connected to the mission, vision, values, the culture, Terry, which you asked about. That is the formula to tap into that discretionary effort and get another 40 to 50, 60% of capacity, which these studies have shown you can literally double the productivity in your organization with the existing people that you have without adding a single another person if you understand how to do this effectively.
Yep.
So very important.
And the other part of that, Mike, is, I've seen so many mission and vision statements that people have created, right? And after they create it, they say, all right, I'm done. I put it in a book and I put it on the shelf, right? You have to have it out there in front of the people and you have to live it, right?
Exactly. Yep. And again, they have to be, constructed properly, as I mentioned too. Like most of them I see are too long, right? So in order for them to be effective, your people have to be able to recite them off the top of their head, right? They have to know it.
Yeah.
So simplicity around them, core values. You should never have more than about 5 or 6 at most, but 3 or 4 is ideal. So again, you start adding more to it, it's that much more challenging for your people to get around it. So one of the first things I do with our clients is to help them reconstruct their mission, vision, value statements so that they are user-friendly, we'll call it, right? And memorable.
And I would like to bring up a point that I've never seen the mission or vision statement in this podcast studio, Will. I have no idea what I'm working towards at this point in time.
You know what? Mike's going to help us with that today.
There you go.
But be sure to bill Terry Kleinfelter, LTD. Terry, our purpose is to drink beer and have fun with contractors and people that help contractors.
Great.
Our core values are never let the keg run out, never serve a cold or a warm beer, and always come prepared for technical difficulties. Right, Drake? So nevertheless, I'm glad, Mike, you mentioned this about like core values and things like that, because we have these. We have core values, we have mission, we have purpose, we have all of that in our organization. And I commonly find, and sorry, we're going to tie this back into, XP3. I commonly find that a lot of contractors, number one, it's like asking a child, what do you want to do for a living? And they're like, it's like, what do you want out of your business? What's your vision? And some of them just shut down. Like they have no clue how to just describe it. And it is like the most powerful recruiting tool to be like, come work for me because this is where we're going, right? Yeah. And it is funny because I've got a good friend of mine. He's got a business. He's very militant. And when you walk into that organization, you can tell right away that this is like a drink from the skull of your enemies type culture, which is not my style. But everybody that fits that culture loves it there.
Yeah.
And like, if I took one of my employees and put in there, they'd be like, man, these are a bunch of Navy SEAL psychopaths in here. And I'm like, but it's just their culture, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like culture can be defined so soft, and it does come back to that vision. So I think that's really important that you focus on that, because most HRIS systems or HR systems,
Yeah.
they don't start there. They're just like, here's your applicant tracking system, automate everything,
Right.
send a bunch of text messages out, and then just it becomes a numbers game. Get more people through the door. Probably a reason that window company just continue to hemorrhage people.
Yep.
By the way, that's the highest turnover rate I've seen in a company of that size. That's nuts.
It's one of the highest across too.
Yeah. So I guess like before we transition into some of the training aspects, like let's just break down XP3 system specifically for contractors trying to attract the right fit employees instead of just filling a position quickly. Because
Right.
we're so bad at it as contractors, we panic hire.
Yep.
And so like, let's break down the XP3 right fit employee type aspect. And like, how does that change that?
Well, first you got to start on defining success. What does that look like in the role, right? As opposed to, let's start with a generic job description that has a bunch of vague tasks described in it or statements that really don't mean anything. So for example, almost every job description I see out there always has, you must be proficient in the Microsoft Office suite, right? So first off, let's talk about the word proficient. Your definition of proficient compared to mine, compared to that candidate's, could be completely different, right? It doesn't really tell us anything what proficient is. And then you're also in the Microsoft Office suite. Well, if you're not aware, there are 8 applications in the Microsoft Office suite. Most companies use 3 of them, right? Most jobs use 1 or 2 of them. So what do I care if you're proficient in all the stuff we don't use? So you have to get specific, and using this one as just one example, right? Let's say that in this role, like you're going to use Microsoft Excel and Word, right? So, you're a project manager, so I need you to create Gantt charts and keep track of the projects and manage stuff there, or budgets and spreadsheets that are in there. So what we do is we say, all right, what I need you to do is rank yourself on Microsoft Excel as either a novice, an intermediate, or an expert, right? And what I need, by the way, in that PM is an intermediate. I don't need an expert. I just need an intermediate. So, and what I tell candidates when I say to answer that, right, I say, look, if you tell me you're an expert at Microsoft Excel, what you just told me is you can teach a class in it. There are all, you can create all the formulas, you can create Gantt charts, pivot tables. There's nothing you can't do. That makes you an expert. And, using it for 15 years doesn't make you an expert. I don't know about you guys, but I've been around a long time, and I was using it since it first came out, before they even called it Excel.
Yeah.
And I'm still barely an intermediate, right? I can create a few formulas, but that's about the extent. So getting clear on what you need, what does success look like? And that's just one minor detail. Like other stuff for a PM, bring the jobs in on time, on budget, with no safety issues, right? Those are other bigger success measures. But looking at stuff like, well, how many jobs are you going to manage as a PM at your company, right? So let's say you're a roofing company, and, each PM may be managing 5 to 10 jobs at a time, right? Because they're only a day or 2 a piece, when you're doing takeoffs, and just putting a new roof on. That PM you're interviewing, you need to know how many jobs have they been managing simultaneously? What are the size of the jobs, right? Because they go, oh, I've only managed 1 at a time, but they were year long and they were, 2 to 3 million a piece. Well, that's a very different PM role than managing, 10 different, remodeling roofing jobs. So most people don't get clear on what success looks like. And that's your first challenge in hiring, because if you don't know what it is you need, how are you going to recognize it if it's sitting in front of you?
Tradies, running your small business can be demanding. You got suppliers you got to work with. You're managing crews. Hell, you're chasing sales. It's a lot to take in. Listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to stop working in it, and you got to start working on it. So that's where my friends at Foundation Rescue Supply come in. You're not just getting foundation repair products and waterproofing products and air quality control products. With their nationwide distribution, you're getting a partner who knows how to help you scale. And that's why I use them. The Foundation Rescue Supply team has industry knowledge that'll help make your life easier. You get the tools, the trainings, the systems that you need to move the needle. You want your sales team to close more leads? Done, because they have the proven process for that. You need your crews to work smarter, not harder? Done. Their installation training will get you out there and rocking and rolling in the field. With Foundation Rescue Supply, you're not just buying materials here, you're buying a better business system that they have helped create. And you sell more, you install more, and you grow your team. So the bottom line is this: you get best industry pricing, you get field productivity on track, and you get more revenue out of everybody on your team. So this is your chance to step up, scale up, and thrive. If you are ready to make that happen, head to foundationrescuesupply.com, check out their catalog, and speak to my friends, their team, how you can take beyond the products with your company with Foundation Rescue Supply. Well, and Mike, we may be getting into this in like the training and retention side. First off, Terry, funny thing, tying back to intermediate and Excel, I love Gantt charts.
Yep.
I love them.
Yep.
And Mike mentioned it like 3 times. I literally misspelled Gantt like 4 times in a meeting. I was like, is it G-A-N-N-T? And then maybe it's G-A-N-N-T. Anyway, it's G-A-N-N-N-T-T. And anyway, and I hate it because the autocorrect didn't kick in.
Yeah.
But
well, that's a test right there. Well, if the PM doesn't even know what a Gantt chart is, that's a little concerning.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yep.
But I wouldn't probably, if they could say they know what a Gantt chart is, but asking them to spell it and watching the bead of sweat roll down their head, that'd be a good interview scenario. But
I mean, Will, you have value even though you can't spell. I mean, you shouldn't use that as a negative.
I know, right? Well, I naturally have very good handwriting, but I have horrible spelling abilities.
It is,
but
beautiful.
You know what? We got Grammarly now. We got all this cool stuff. But hey, Mike, this is going to get down into probably training and retention. But I just want to break down the psychology of this too, because I talk about this with my team. Like, I think most people just want to know what is expected of them.
Yes.
In their role. And when we're just not very clear on that. So like taking the consultancy business owner's hat off, putting the employee hat on, like, what have you seen on the other side of that from studies and what you've written about like, they want that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they just want to be told.
Well, in fact, Will, it's the number one reason that employees are not more successful than they are is because managers typically suck at defining success. And think about it, right? It's like asking your employees to win a race, but not telling them where the finish line is, right? Whereas if you say, hey, go 1 mile down here, take a right, and and it's right there, well, their ability to win just went up by 50%. So you have to get, crystal clear on what does success look like in this role, whatever role it is. And it could be a receptionist, right? Hey, part of your job is answering the phones. Well, success is defined as answering it in 3 rings or less and answering it this way, right? And then you tell them friendly, upbeat, whatever the words you want them to use. That's a success measure. So most people have challenges coming up with, how do I define success? And again, I say for me, it's not difficult because I do it every day, but it's easy to learn, right? And there are success measures you can come up for every single role that help define success. And if you want your existing employees and or new employees to be more successful, that's where you got to start. Help define what success looks like for them in that role. Now you have something to measure, because it goes to the flip side too. Well, it's like, I got an employee who's not performing well. Then I talk to them, well, what are they not doing? Well, I can't pinpoint it, but and I was like, no, I don't know. If you can't tell me what they're doing wrong, we can't fix it. So being able to assess the problem also goes back to, if you define what success looks like, right, then being able to assess where they're doing well and where they're not becomes so much easier.
Well, Mike, it's not just the idea that, say we go out there and we find that right person for that right role, right? Yep. We have to onboard them and make sure that we're not just saying, hey, you're hired, go make me money now. What does that onboarding process look?
Wait, we can't say that?
Yeah.
No, Will.
No. Right.
No.
There are days, bro. There are days.
Yeah. And Terry, even though if you get lucky to hire one of those A players, that's where people go, oh, well, they're super sharp. I don't need to worry about training them. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Even if they worked for a competitor down the street, they got to learn your systems, your processes, your materials, your way of doing stuff, right? And the faster they learn it, the faster they'll become a productive member of your team.
No. And, Mike, working with A players is such a blessing at times. I've worked with Will so long, I have forgotten what that is like.
Don't throw me under the bus just yet, bro. All right. Listen, I want to segue.
Yep.
And because I think you've got something incredibly important, let's just because we're really bad at this as contractors.
Mhm.
You're hired and they showed up.
Yep.
And it's like, here's your shirt, go work.
Yep.
And go work. He's been with us for years, but like your talent acceleration onboarding concept in your book.
Yep.
I think it's like chapter 4, 5, or 6 or something. Like, break that down for me because it's powerful.
Thank you.
Like, it's insanely powerful we just did all this legwork to get this employee in the door.
Yep.
And now we think the job's over, but it's not. But man, you made it so easy. So break that down for us.
All right. So the first thing is, as I said, go back to what we said. Even if you get lucky enough to hire one of those A players, they still need training on all of your stuff, right?
Yep.
But really what you're training on them on is not, how to do their job necessarily. What you're doing is you're transforming those new hires, and I said this earlier, into passionate, collaborative company advocates. Okay. That is your goal the first 3 days on the job. So think of the old, you only get one chance to make a good first impression, right?
Yep.
So this isn't something you can wait and do later. It's got to be done right up front, particularly the first day.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 objectives that we teach in order to accomplish that, right? But I'll take a step back. It's the training starts in the hiring process, right? So your mission, vision, values, as we talked about, they need to be on your About Us page, your career page, so they're visible to candidates, right? Just interviewed a marketing manager for one of our contractor clients this morning, and she pointed out right away, I love your mission. I'm in alignment with your core values. That's how she started the interview, and then she recited them to us. And she goes, that's how I live my life.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah. But if they don't know what they are, you're never going to get that. We even put it, our mission and our core values are in our job post in the ads and say, we live and die by these. So you can't put them in a drawer. You can't just have them up on a wall. You got to live and breathe them through the hiring process. The other thing I'll mention too is key thing to improve your hiring, because everybody needs to learn, right? As we just said, 2 things you're always focused on when you're hiring people. 1, are they smart enough to learn what you have to teach them? 2, are they coachable, which is very different than being smart, right? You can be the smartest guy in the world, but if you're a know-it-all, can't teach anything. So you need to be doing things through your hiring process to assess how smart they are and are they coachable. So you're also figuring out when you get granular around the success measures, this is where this candidate's strong against the requirements. This is where there are gaps. So therefore, if I hire this person, I know I need to focus on these gaps to get them to be productive faster, right? So training begins in the hiring process. Now we've hired them. We're going to train them. 3 objectives. Number 1, create an amazing experience. That's what your first goal is. Think about you're inviting someone over to your house for the first time that you want to impress, right? You roll out the red carpet. You're on your best behavior, right? You got to do the same exact thing there. And it's little tiny things, right? As opposed to, the example I had for myself years ago, started a new job, show up. First off, receptionist got her head down. I think she was playing on her phone on a game or something. Probably didn't look up for me for at least 3 or 4 minutes till I was like, excuse me. and she kind of then gave me this look like I was interrupting her. And she goes, and she said, what? Nice greeting. Okay. Well, I'm the new employee and I was told to report here. Well, nobody told me about it. So, okay,
man.
well, sorry, but this person hired me. This is it. Well, hang on. Let me go find out what's up. Then she comes back and she says, well, he's in a meeting and he said just to show to your office and you can wait in there for him. So she brings me back to the office, right? And so again, not good planning on his part.
Yeah.
I get in the office and it was filthy. There was sticky stuff on the phone and, there was garbage laying around. I opened one of the drawers on the desk. There was half-eaten candy bars in there, from the last person that had the office. And then I was sitting there waiting, and it's probably a half hour or so went by. And I was like, all right, I guess this guy isn't coming anytime soon. And there was no one else around that I could find. So I said, I'm going to go take myself on a tour. I found the kitchen, found some 409, grabbed a rag, and started cleaning my office. Right. So that's the opposite of a good first impression.
Yeah.
So little things, notify everybody. Hey, we got a new employee started. Put out a little sign. Welcome, Mike Matalone, your first day here at the company. Clean the office. Be organized above everything. Have a detailed plan, for at least the first day, if not the first couple, rather than, hey, go to HR, fill out the paperwork, and then read this stuff, watch these videos, right? Let me know if you got questions. Not a good experience. So creating an amazing experience for them is number one. Number two, help them understand the big picture and what we like to call in construction the project journey, right? How do we market and bring in leads to identify prospective new clients? How do we sell and close deals? What's involved in that? What's the handoff to production at that stage? How do we actually build, install? How do we handle finances, customer service? So you map out the project journey, and it could take a half hour to an hour, just high level. Hey, this is what happens each step of the way, so that every employee, and again, I don't care if it's a receptionist, a laborer, or the new company president, that is meaningful for everybody to help them understand how it all comes together. And again, you're not teaching them how to do everything. You're just saying, hey, these are the critical pieces that when they work together, we run as a well-oiled machine, right? And every role in this company is critical to that operation, helping them to understand that. So other things with that too, go back to that window contractor I was talking about, right? Mostly they had salespeople. They would put them through a 2-week sales boot camp. The only thing that they would do for 2 weeks is learn a 10-step, one call close process and product knowledge about windows, right? The only person they ever really met was the trainer that was assigned with them for 2 weeks, right? So, and by the way, the 9 years prior, the most they'd ever graduated was 50% of a class. So, and you had to take a written exam, and the most they ever got, I think, was like an average class exam, about 83. The very first class we did on this system I'm describing, we graduated 95%. Actually, we hired 18, graduated 17. And then those 17 people, and this is the proof in the pudding, that after the 2-week training, they go out in the field, start running leads. Those 17 reps sold $1.5 million in windows their first month in the field or first 6 weeks on the job, right?
Yeah.
1 year later.
The sacrifice of a few weeks.
Yeah. 1 year later, 16 of the 17 were still there, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, we didn't do anything to teach them how to sell windows better. They had that down. Like, we didn't teach them about product knowledge. We taught them how to create a great learning environment and an experience and help them understand the big picture. So the big picture, we brought the marketing team in and we had them explain, look, this is what we do to develop those leads for you that we're handing you, right? And this is what they cost. This is what my job is as the digital manager. This is what my job is as marketing manager. And we helped them understand what their teammates were doing to support their success. And what we found also is that the complaints about the shitty leads completely went away. They had a whole new appreciation for what their teammates were doing to help them. We took them out in the field one day and let them see how the windows were installed and work side by side with the PMs. And this goes to, by the way, the third objective. Build relationships with as many other employees as possible for 2 reasons. Number one, it leads to collaboration. So if you really want a team that collaborates, they have to know who each other are. Number two, there's been also tons of research around this. The top one is the Society for Human Resource Managers, or SHRM. They've done this study multiple times year over year and found the number one contributing factor to retention is relationships with other employees. And they found with each additional relationship, that retention factor goes up that much higher. So you're doing two things. You're building relationships, helping them get to know their teammates, and you're creating collaboration. Because like those PMs, when they're out in the field, said, look, instead of making a promise we can't deliver, you come across this problem. Here's my cell phone. Call me. Let's collaborate, talk about it. So you sell a win-win for everybody. So those are the 3 objectives: amazing experience, understand the big picture, and build relationships that lead to collaboration. And notice nothing in there was about training them for the job that they're doing. That's a given. You're going to do that too. But those come after those 3 objectives, which are all about transforming them into passionate, collaborative, productive company advocates.
So I'd like to dive deeper into that just from your observation, Mike, about specifically, I do believe like call it political bond with other coworkers, because it's kind of like walking into high school for the first day. You don't know anybody. You're in a new school type thing. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And like, what are some of the cool creative ways that you've seen companies around the country try to get employees to understand and engage with other departments and get to know on a relationship level that is healthy?
Yep.
And like improve on that, because that does become its own kind of like snowball effect that doesn't really need the owner's attention.
Yeah.
I've seen.
Yep.
Like, so what's some of the cool stuff you've seen around the country that people have done?
And well, it's not even that it's cool stuff. It's simple stuff, right? And it's the stuff you just don't even put thought to. So for example, that one trainer could have taught them about what marketing does, what production does, but hearing it directly from the people who are doing it is much more impactful, right? But rather than them just coming and say, hey, I'm Mike, I'm the marketing director here, right? Let me tell you what I do. We actually give them an introduction outline, right? And if you don't give them this, they're not going to do it because they don't think of it, right? So it's not just that I'm Mike, I'm Mike Matalone. I'm the director of marketing, whatever my title is. I've been with the company now for 7 years. Here's why I love working here, right? So each person does this. And then you say, and by the way, when I'm not working, right, I live on a lake with my wife and my 4 dogs. And, we love to socialize with our friends and go out and boating. And, I start telling them about my personal life a little bit. And all this is done like in just, a minute or two. It's not like it takes a long time. But that helps them to get to know who Mike Matalone is, not just Mike, the director of marketing, who told us this stuff about marketing. So, and then the new employee kind of repeats it in a similar fashion. Hey, here's what I did before I got here. Here's why I wanted to work here, right? And hopefully they're going to say stuff around, I believe in your mission. I have the same core values, right? I love your customer reviews and what your customers say about you. So you hear that. That is what helps build relationships and spending time with each other. So it's really not cool stuff, Will. It's just that simple thing goes a long way to creating those relationships, because now they know, who to go to. And I'll summarize it with this. And this is another part of the onboarding you have to do. At the end of the first day, and even the first couple of days, the last thing you're going to do is ask the new hires 2 questions. And you got to tell them this, by the way, in the morning before it starts, and say, look, as you can see here, we got a structured training plan. You're going to, get the project journey. Oh, by the way, it starts with going over your mission, vision, values. That's the first thing. Then it's the project journey. Then maybe you send them to HR to fill out paperwork for 30 minutes. Then you come back and you're going to spend time with marketing. Then you're going to spend time with the call center people. Then you're going to spend time with finance or production or whatever. You give them that schedule so it's organized. That's part of the experience. But what I want you to do, new hire, is for every session you're in, I want you to take a couple of notes. And at the end of the day, I want you to tell me, what did we do well in this session, right? So we can continue doing that for all other new hires. And I want you to tell me what ideas that you might have for us to improve upon that session, right? And you have to be specific and tell them, this isn't criticism. You might say, hey, it needed more time or less time. It'd have been nice if you had some visuals to show me, right? So say, we're kind of new at this, so we really value and appreciate your feedback, which, by the way, saying that alone on day one to new employees goes a long way to creating a bond with that employee and that commitment to your organization. So with that being said, when we first started doing this years ago, it was a design build firm in New Hampshire. We hired a PM, a kitchen and bath sales designer, a full-time estimator, and a lead carpenter. They all started the same day, all went through the same thing. And at the end of the day, we had the 4 of them there. We asked those questions. The first person to speak up You know which one it was? Not the one you'd think. It was the carpenter.
Yeah.
Right?
Really?
Yeah. The carpenter goes, look, he goes, I'm wearing my work jeans, my boots. He goes, I've been a carpenter 25 years, worked for probably a dozen companies. He goes, I expected the same thing that happened at every other company. I'd come in, fill out some HR paperwork, and then go shuffle off into the field, start doing my job. Right? He goes, the fact that you kept me here all day and showed me the schedule, and you're going to keep me here the next 2 days and treated me exactly the same. And by the way, every one of your employees that I've met have been so welcoming and friendly and helpful to help me understand what they do and how that works, and supports my job and vice versa. He goes, every other company I went to, the only person I ever knew inside the office was the HR person. Right? He goes, I had no idea how the company operated, what they did, what other people did, unless they were in the field working side by side with me. He goes, the fact that all that stuff happened, I already called my wife at lunch and I told her I found my last job.
Oh, that's cool.
That's what you're trying to accomplish. Okay.
Well, and you hit something on the head there, Mike, because it's like, everybody in an organization, despite your title or position or department, should be treated with equal respect, right?
Exactly.
And I'm a big fan of it. We will pause bringing somebody on board in our company, knowing that, hey, if we hold off a week, they're going to come in with a group of 3 or 4, right? And it could be diversified. So, and it's something that we're just really bad at in construction, where it's like, man, we just need somebody now.
Yeah.
And I have found, and I don't know if you find this in smaller organizations, that it's like, even if you put a do not disturb on your email or not an autoresponder saying, hey, I'm not available even to customers because I am literally taking the time to train my employees today, that even customers are cool with it. Have you found that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because it's like, well, no, what's going to happen? All these customers are going to call me and we've got all these problems. And,
Right.
they got to be dealt with. And during the onboarding, the owner's taking calls and complaints.
But
And
they will be
it's
there
just
in an
like,
hour too. They're not going anywhere.
yeah. And it's kind of like it's the whole, I did have a great case study with a guy having some trouble in a production team, more of a toxic team member. And he was like, no, I am fully prepared to call all of my customers and push them back to November to tell them, listen, I am restructuring a team that can serve you better.
Yep.
And if you're fine to wait 3 months, I am happy to help you, but I need to take the time to do this.
Yep.
He did that. And guess what? All the customers, he had a $1 million backlog, were like, thank you for letting us know. We don't want bad work on our house.
Nope.
Now, granted, they didn't have to wait till November. That was the expectation. They pulled it up. Blew my mind. And remind me to tell you, Terry, of Dan Knapp up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, man. It was just like, it was a big balls move, bro. I was like, wow. I was like, but man, he was that committed to just like, no, this is what we're going to build in. So, Dan, if you're listening, I just used you as a case study. Attic Nerds up in Tulsa, man. Cool operation. 6 employees. That's how they do it up there. 6 employees. It's crazy.
So, Mike, you talk about employee engagement, and that is not a common word within the construction home service industry. How important is it to create that? And how do you get owners on board telling them that it's going to be beneficial down the road?
Well, Terry, we kind of talked about some of it, but I'll just connect the dots, right?
Because like employee engagement, like what is that? Is that some Wall Street, like big banking white collar thing?
Right, right. Well, first you have to understand the difference between employee satisfaction and engagement, right? Satisfaction is I'm happy with the pay, the benefits, right? The hours I work. Engagement is what I talked about earlier. It's that psychological connection to the organization, mission, vision, values, and to the work they're doing, the behavioral connection. That is how you create engagement. The Gallup organization, again, is probably the leaders in the research and writing on what engagement is. And they even develop an assessment, and they call it the Q12. It's 12 questions that help identify how engaged your employees really are. And probably at least 8 out of those 12 questions are really coming back to how effective are your managers at engaging their employees. because the managers are the ones with their hands on the levers with their direct reports who have the most impact, right? I mean, as a company, the mission, vision, values, that's more corporate, global, if you will. But the day-to-day levers are up to that immediate supervisor. So they need to understand what engagement is and why it's so important to your success. And the quick answer, again, is what I said before. Engagement is tapping into that discretionary effort. So you want to increase your sales, your productivity, your bottom line, everything, and, decrease absenteeism, decrease safety, incidents. All of these relate back to how engaged your employees are. So that's kind of the short version of it. But the other thing I'll say, is on our website, we even have a free employee engagement survey. So if you want to have, your employees or yourself go test out and see what it's about, and you'll get an idea of some of the questions. But one of the questions, by the way, is, do I have someone at work that I consider to be a true friend, right? That relationship factor, right? If they don't, they're not engaged completely, and you're in danger of losing that person. So that kind of tells you then, well, what do we got to do? It's not just with new employees. Sometimes we got to get the existing people to get to know each other. So what kinds of activities and things are you doing to facilitate that?
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because when I heard this term years ago, I totally missed the target, Mike. And I was like, oh, we're just going to sit around and we're going to hug each other. We're all going to get along as employees, and like everybody's going to be happy. But no, it's not. Like it allows for like some tough conversations around specifically core value and things like that. So because of our time, and thank you for that. I love the fact that you have a free assessment, because and I know the book that you're referring to through the Gallup organization. I love that. We've used it for years.
First, break all the rules.
Yeah. Great, fantastic book. And they built it out in summits. It's like, don't even look at the other questions. If you can't get 4s or 5s on the first 3, like, don't even bother. Like, they don't say it as eloquently as I do, Terry, in the book. But yeah, so, and gosh, Mike, I feel like we could go like a whole other episode here just because of the wealth of stuff and the value that we're talking about, because, man, this is like, it's so important, and the cost savings in a business alone are nuts. So, but let's just move to retention, like, because talent retention, we spent the money and time to get them there. We've been working our tails off to get them trained for the job. And then now it's like they're there, and like people have lives, and they just go through weird stuff in their lives, and poof, all of a sudden something happens, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, what's the top 3 pieces of advice that you give to folks after you've gotten through these first few phases about retaining employees and making sure that that's happening?
Yep. Well, one, we talked about the relationships, right? You got to focus on building relationships constantly. The other one that's equally as important is careers versus jobs, right? If you're just hiring, hey, I need a carpenter, I need a laborer, or an installer, and you're just looking at it as I need to plug a hole, right? Then that's what you're going to get. But if you take the mindset that I am creating careers for people, but you literally then actually act on that. So by the way, the number one thing that we hear from candidates why they're leaving their jobs is they didn't believe there was a future with them, that company, right? I thought I maxed out. There's nowhere else to go. And it's sad that, because it's actually your question about some cool creative ideas, right? This one I can give you real easy, because people say, well, we're a small company, right? There are only 15 people. There aren't that many other roles, right? Unless someone retires or dies or something. So part of the career path is getting creative with roles. And the employee, in order for the retention piece to work, there always has to be a next step that they are working towards. So another level where they're trying to get to, and it needs to be clearly defined. So the creative part, again, we'll use the project manager, right? But you can even be a laborer, right? You start up and you say, hey, you start off with us as a laborer 1 or a project manager 1. We're going to provide, initial training for you in the first 30 days on the job or whatever you do, including those 3 days I talked about on the 3 objectives, and then specific training about the actual work you're doing. But then we're going to have a review in 90 days. And in order for you to get from, project manager 1 or laborer 1 to laborer project manager 2, right? You have to demonstrate you can do these things successfully. And once you do that, then you will get a bump and raise. So let's say you're paying the $20 an hour for a laborer. When you demonstrate that, you will get your first raise. We'll bump you to 22 an hour, right? Then after that, it could be laborer 3, right? After you demonstrate these different things over the next several months, right? You could get bumped to laborer 3 and go to 25 an hour. So in that method, there's always something they're working towards. And then even just like with the laborer, it's like, I didn't hire you to be a laborer. I hired you to become a production manager down the road somewhere. So the career path is you're going to go through these couple steps of laborers, right? Then maybe you're going to become an installer. Then maybe a crew chief. Then a project manager, right? So part of it is getting creative with the titles, and the comp that goes with it, so there's always something that employees are working toward. They always have to know there's something next. Otherwise, they're going to go somewhere else where they can find it. So those relationships and the career path are the 2 key elements to retention.
Boom. Mike, I feel like we could go down this rabbit hole because I'm so passionate about it. Like,
yeah, I have a little bit.
Ongoing. Yeah, well, yeah, obviously. And obviously your second book was way better than your first. Yeah. Your words, not mine. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, like your books on Amazon, man, it's an awesome read. I love it when I get books that have the size 18 font. They're not difficult to read. But I want to be clear, like it's simplified. It's awesome. Go out there, get it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Also, you have industry knowledge. We see so many times outside the box. It's just like, yeah, I wrote a book and I'm an HR professional, but I have no understanding of trades and what it is to get dirt under my fingernails. So I'm glad that you got that. So
well, the piece you don't know about on that, Will, I'm actually starting a high-end deck company here on the lake where I live. So I've been so envious of my clients that I've helped see go from 2-3 million to 10, 20 million in a 3-4 year period. Because I love the home improvement industry because it is so systematized. Yeah. And if you just implement the systems and follow it, you almost can't help but become successful. So
has it started yet, Mike?
We started putting it together in July. We're actually going to probably officially kick it off here at the end of this month. So,
okay, this will be interesting. I want to hear your thinking on this. Yeah. What's going to be the first hire?
The first hire?
Yeah.
Project manager.
Okay.
And only because, so my wife is partnering with me. And so while I understand construction, I can build stuff. I am no expert. Again, barely the intermediate, entry level intermediate. So I'm not the expert in the production side. So I need someone who is. And again, we're starting it small. So my motivation, Will, is probably more important, which is I'm not trying to build a big company around this. I'm trying to build a model that I can show people how actually easy this is to build a highly effective team and build a company that's profitable and do it in the first year.
Well, I'm going to love this follow-up episode because next time, Terry, we're going to see Mike. He's going to have a beard, long hair, flannel shirt, hammer in hand, deck builder, Mike. By the way, what's the name of the company, Mike?
Lake Anna Deck Solutions.
Okay. Follow-up episode. Yeah. We'll have to throw it out there, episode 115, 120 or something. So, Mike, I'm passionate about what you do. I love the value you bring to the world, especially for contractors. And back to the first 10 minutes of this, mindset, man. Whoa. So we're going to put your show notes and stuff, but you still meet with people just one-off, and you've got some free downloadable resources on your website, I see.
Yep.
Like, what's the best way to reach out to you? LinkedIn, website? What is it?
Well, email me, Mike at XP3Talent.com, and it's the number 3, right? Mm-hmm. Which there's science behind that, but I won't get into that at the moment.
Yeah.
Our website, you can learn a ton at our website, XP3Talent.com. That's where that free engagement survey. There's also another free tool that I want to mention. It's called a company diagnostic. And this is for the owners, right? And the management team. So one of my early mentors taught me that most contractors actually go out and just build themselves a job, right? Not a business, Right?
Yep.
So
Technicians.
they're working 60, 70 hours a week. They're trying to do it all, and even if they're making more money, they don't have time to enjoy it because they're working all the time.
Mhm.
Right. So this mentor taught me, said many things, but one was really about being focused, carving out a niche. Hence why we're not going to just become a remodeling company. We're only doing high-end decks. That's it.
Yep.
But there are 5 pillars of every business. And it's the people is the number one pillar, because without people, you don't have anything else other than a job that you're working your butt off for. 2 is then when you're building a team, you have to have leadership. And that's where that mission, vision, values, culture, KPIs, things like that come into that. Next is operations and admin. So that's where your production stuff and your internal operations fall under. Sales and marketing is another pillar, and your 5th pillar is finance. So within each one, there's about 10 or 12 items that you assess. And the way it's designed to work is for the management team to get together and rate on a 10-point scale how well you're doing in each area. So under people, for example, how effective are we at hiring top talent? Do we have a structured process we follow? And then every management team member gives their score. The average score is what goes in there, right? When you're done with this, it'll tell you what are your focus areas from this pillar, right? Oh, we're really good at this and this and this, but we got a big hole here. That kind of tells you where do we need to focus over the next 90 days? What's the low-hanging fruit in order to move the needle and gain more traction and help us to achieve our goals better? So the company diagnostic is a tool we created. And you can do a free example of it on the website. So I highly encourage people to go check that out. It'll really help you pinpoint where your company's doing well and where you got holes you need to plug.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely put the link in that, and because, man, that's going to be super helpful. But Mike, thank you for what you do. Terry, glad to have you back in the studio, even though I messed with all your stuff in your absence. To all you tradies out there, all 6 or 7 of you. And by the way, I know there's more of you guys out there, several thousand of you. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week on another Beers with Contractors. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.